Friends, welcome back to the Ransomed Heart Podcast. John Eldredge here with three of my favorite people in the world. My wife, Stasi.
Hello.
And Morgan and Cherie Snyder. Hi, guys.
Hi, John.
Hey, good to be with you guys.
Yeah, it's good to be in the studio. We're going to do a series conversationally on something that's pretty close to all of our hearts, and particularly close because of the season that we've been walking through. If you've been in touch with the Ransomed Heart world in any way, on social or on our website, newsletters, or listening to the podcast here, you know that our dear Craig McConnell stepped into glory and his full role in the kingdom back in August. And this actually isn't going to be a podcast about that, though we may refer to it. But what going through all that together has meant is a pretty heightened need for soul care. Learning to being conscious of actually practices that help us nurture and restore and deepen, heal, kind of the collective world of what it looks like to care for your soul. I was struck the other day by the passage in Hebrews where it describes Jesus as the shepherd and guardian of our souls. And I just am aware that I think he's trying to do that most of the time without my conscious cooperation. He's trying to shepherd. He's trying to be the guardian of my soul. But I think I get in the way of that a lot. I think I want to be a more intentional participant in what it looks like to shepherd and care for my soul and for my wife's soul, for our kids, for our friends, the people we care about. So we're just going to open up a conversation and share with you some thoughts and some stories and reflect back and forth on what soul care might look like. But let me just start with a question you weren't anticipating, which is, how is your soul? How is your soul these days?
Should have been anticipating that question.
Yeah, that would have been helpful. John, for me, it's a exposing question because about 6 months ago, we were at May boot camp. And typically the mode at boot camp is praying, interceding for all the men. But it was one of those moments where the Holy Spirit said, this is for you. This is for you. So kind of shifted gears and tuned in. And these words came up from this young place in my soul where he just said, I'm mad at you.
So young you is mad at older you.
Older me. And it was this young place that wasn't particularly broken. He was particularly healthy. And he was saying, you're mean to me. And you're driving me. And it just caught me off guard. And before I could kind of explain my way to myself or think about it, I had this holy conviction of he was right. The demands what I was demanding of my own soul was simply unkind and unsustainable.
Yeah.
So that was May. And it's interesting as you asked that question this morning, it's very hopeful because I can say my soul is well to much more of a degree than it was 6 months ago. And we've been through some really hard things. But the distinction is I let that inform me in May. And we've gotten in a healthier rhythm of an annual rhythm to care for the soul and fought for a sabbatical this summer where we tended to our souls. And it was from a full tank that I was able to come into some major battles.
Some really hard stuff this summer.
Exactly. And then some other things to point to later in the way of soul care. But it's very interesting where circumstances have been very violent, challenging, and yet that soul interaction informed me to make some calculated decisions. So better than I was 6 months ago.
I can feel the reaction of our listeners right now to hear anyone say, "Oh, actually, it's pretty well with my soul." You feel the ache, you feel the envy, you feel the longing. Right, friends, track with us. Like, me too. I get it. Like, yes, that's available. Let's talk more. But I want to hear, Cherie, how's your soul? How's your soul?
I would say my soul is better than it has been. What I mean by better than it has been is that Morgan and I just had a very rough year in 2015. I really got the wind knocked out of my soul in the summer of 2015, and it was very sobering. And I honestly didn't think I would be back in that place after all that God did for me in the wake of 2008. And some of you are familiar with that story. Morgan shares at boot camp, and we've referenced in other places. And so 2015 was so
it was a hard year.
Hard for me. And so I really felt inspired by our Father in heaven to really take a step back and look, what was contributing and where did I need. I didn't want to keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I really felt a call that I needed to make a massive change.
Yeah.
And I felt a call. I was looking at Morgan and I will often talk about this, living by daily bread, but measuring in decades. And I really felt inspired by the Father to say, where do you want to be a decade from now? And I wanted to be, I really felt, I said, Father, I thank you that I am a tender person, but I would also like to be strong. And and resilient and have some kind of more metal in me. And John, I really appreciated that yesterday as I was reading through what you were offering about soul care, this idea of what allows my soul to grow stronger. And you were referencing there's a difference between relief and between strengthening the soul. And that really resonated with what the call that I felt earlier this year of I want to be stronger. Really, actually, it was more of a year ago, fall of 2015. I want to be stronger. I want my soul to be more resilient.
Yes.
I want my soul to be stronger. And an invitation to really step back and look at how I arranged my days, my weeks, and also my vision for what was available in the kingdom. What kind of life is available to us? And it really started me on a brand new treasure hunt with Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And so I want to say, and I'm so grateful to say, my soul feels stronger, more resilient, and with more vision than it has in a long time.
I'm grateful.
Thank you.
I'm grateful. Hun, how's your soul?
Boy, I want to say that I'm soaring after all of that.
I know.
I'm sorry. That's not what I wasn't trying to.
I think the table is listing.
You should have talked to us last year. We were
This side of it.
Just talked to us last night.
This side of the table is taking on water. So
No, I understand what you said about 2015, like not being more excited about a new year.
Yes.
And I think that we've got great things coming probably in this next week, our first grandbaby. We're so excited. But other than that, we're like really excited for 2016 to come to a close.
Yes.
yeah.
So my soul is, at the depth of me, I'm well, but my soul is weary.
Yeah.
It's weary and battered.
Yeah.
It's been a rough year. It's been a year of physical pain and loss and emotional pain. And in the midst of that, God is holding me. But man, I'm in need of some soul care.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I Stace, tell the story though about your car keys the other day.
Oh, okay. So I spent about 5 minutes searching for my car keys, and I'm going to be late. Maybe I left them in the car after 5 minutes of looking everywhere they possibly could be. They were in my hand.
I love you so much.
It's
Oh my
beautiful.
goodness. Oh, I was never
Love
going to
that you
find
told
them
that
because I was
story.
holding them, for heaven's sake.
So, gang, that's how we are.
Mhm.
Over at the Eldredge house,
Mm.
it's just been a rough year, and God has been immensely kind in it. I need to immediately proclaim that,
Mhm.
Yes.
or I would be untrue to the
Mhm.
story, and I would be very ungrateful. God has been very gracious, but man, we're hammered, and we are in need of soul care.
Mhm.
It feels
Yes.
like with you, hon, my my soul is weary. My soul is pretty empty. I feel like I'm running not on fumes. I got a little bit in the tank, but I am not Bernard of Clairvaux's reservoir that's overflowing, like a fountain that's being refreshed. I'm not. I'm not. That's not what we are, and that's why soul care.
Mhm.
I'm tired. I can sense a much quicker level of irritation,
Mhm.
pretty quick exasperation with things that don't go well.
Mhm.
Not a lot of margin.
Mhm.
We're kind of in power save mode here. When your phone gets down to
Mhm.
desperate levels and your phone asks you want to go into power save mode?
Mhm.
It
Yes.
sort of feels like that. So that's just a preface. It's an introduction to kind of let our listeners know here's where we are. Here's how we're doing. When you think about, we're going to jump into some examples. We're going to jump into some stories and not leave you all hanging, dear listeners, going, well, how do you do that?
Mhm.
We're going to get there. We're probably going to do that over 3 installments. But let me just pause first and ask, when you think about the people in your world,
Mhm.
those you love, those that are in your community, church, neighborhood, family, is soul care a category? Do you see people thinking about that?
Well, what's beautiful is I'm sitting at this table with people who do
Mhm.
and have chosen to make that an intentional part of their daily lives because they recognize what happens when they don't.
Mhm.
And yes, being a part of this ministry, something we talk about. So surrounded by a company of people that are learning to grow in this and care for their souls. But in my outer world, no, just the pace of life and in my neighborhood and my friends and the demands of life are so usurping that soul care feels like the first thing to go.
Mhm.
Oh, it feels like a luxury
Yep.
for the retired
Mhm.
or the empty nesters or, some unique group of people that have just a lot of sort of bandwidth
Yes.
and frankly, probably a little money
Yep.
that could go do that kind of thing.
Well, John, it's such a revealing question because as I look at all the men I walk with and frankly look at my own life in various seasons, it's really the great divider between people that are trying and just feeling mostly defeat compared to people living in a broken world but are living with hope, with maturation, with
Yes.
growing in intimacy.
Yes.
And because I remember a story. So several years ago, I was looking several years ago into spending time at a monastery, and I got online and I was reading about this Benedictine monastery, and they were describing their culture, and they said, we don't find ways to fit prayer into our regular life. We actually live a life of prayer, and we find ways to fit the essentials into it. And I read that and went, that's easy. You're a monk. You're a monk, disqualified.
Oh, come out of the 13th century.
Totally. And then the Holy Spirit said, nope, that's the kingdom. That's the kingdom
Wow.
life. That is what is available. And that's what I'm inviting you into. And it was the shift that revealed this broken conviction. And it was just a little bit
my
later
goodness.
after that this quote, this idea came from this wise mentor where a young man asked him, he said, how is it that I should spend my 15-minute quiet time every day? Because as you ask that question, I think of people spending activities to try to recover the life of their soul. And this old wise man responded to this younger man and said, I don't think that God is rather concerned about your 15-minute quiet time. He is far more concerned with what it is that you do with the other 23 hours and 45 minutes of your day.
Yes.
And he went on to describe that we must arrange our days, our entire days, where we are experiencing this deep contentment, then this joy and confidence in our everyday life with God. And so what I'm aware of in my own life, in the lives of the men that I walk with, is it comes down to a shift of, rather than seeing soul care as activities to squeeze into regular life, that the soul is the centerpiece of our being. And it's from a soulful understanding of reality that we must shape every part of our life.
Yeah. Jesus said, what will it profit a person? Right? If they gain the whole world and lose their soul. And listeners, I just want to say, you can lose your soul long before you die. That's actually not primarily a concept about salvation, but about the erosion of the gift of God in you, which is your soul, like the eternal parts of you. So now I'm going to pause real quick and just capture those who are going, oh my gosh, I don't have, this sounds so far beyond my reality. Here's what soul care looked like for me yesterday. I pulled into the parking lot here at the Outpost, totally stressed out. 16 things that I was already late on doing. And rather than rushing out of my car, I just laid my forehead down on the steering wheel. And it was a small attempt to say no. I feel such demand for me to just run. I got to run all day long, and if I don't run all day long, I'm not going to be okay. And I just literally needed to just lay my head down on my steering wheel and pause and be kind to my own inner being and breathe and just find my breath again and just let it go. Just let it go for a moment. It may have lasted 90 seconds. This isn't 45 minutes in the presence of a living God. Okay, this is 90 seconds of a rescue, where it was just a turn back from the pace, whatever, to just say, Jesus, my soul, my soul, my soul. So, gang, as we lay out some things for you to think about, we're not going to, this isn't grad school. We're not going to set some massive high bar in front of you that just immediately you feel like a failure before you ever get started. What we're trying to do is just talk about the importance of it, how we practice it in our lives, introduce the category, get you thinking about it, and get you thinking about ways that you might begin to care for your soul a little better. I think I'm going to pause our conversation right here and just let that simmer. Just let some of these initial thoughts percolate a little bit about the idea of a life that honors the care of your soul and some of the things you've even heard us say. We're gonna segue out today on this and pick up next time with some examples and a little bit more insight into what it means to care for the soul. You've been listening to the Ransomed Heart podcast this week with Morgan and Cherie Snyder, John and Stasi Eldredge.